So we do have a recorder for those who aren't on the call, and we will continue to work with this group collaboratively. And as I said, we really appreciate the support here moving forward. Our agenda for tonight is going to be, as set out there in the documents, introductions, what is the pilot, the role of the OHF, the role of the member, the role of the association, the role of the coaches, and any questions we have from that. We are going to try to keep this pretty tight. And so we will move fairly quickly through the information, and then we'll go to questions at the end as we move forward through it. So what is the pilot? There are two components, or kind of two and a half components to the pilot. One is a skills evaluation of players at the start of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year, and a comparison of those evaluations of those individuals from start of the year to middle of the year to the end of the year, where the programming difference will be the gameplay of half ice versus full ice hockey. So we will be asking, and you'll see through the request, that we will have individuals, coaches operating, similar practice plans throughout the year, similar time frames, so kind of to keep our averages of practice to games in the right place, and guiding that for this age group, and really being able to evaluate players on their technical skills, individual technical skills. So skating forward, skating backward, pucks, pivots, crossovers, and tight turns, quickness, agility, lateral movement, stick handling and puck control, passing and receiving, and then shooting, accuracy, and speed. So those will be components that are part of this. Part of this will lead into, did we operate our practices well? And these sessions will be delivered by the coaches. So the practice plan will be delivered in place for the coaches, but we'll have evaluators from the OHF being part of that. What that looks like from an individual standpoint is, each individual will be evaluated and any comments that go along with that individual. Second component of the evaluation of players is looking at gameplay evaluation components. We will be asking coaches with their teams to conduct this evaluation. We will also have individuals who are watching certain games via video that will also conduct this evaluation of players to ensure they're tying to what the coaches have done in their evaluation. So we will be in a situation where this will be a request and a feedback that will be provided by those coaches as we go forward. So that is component one, which is a skills evaluation. In the last 2 weeks of September here, we'll be active in that. The second and third week of December, and then in the month of March, we'll do the last evaluation of these players to determine, is there growth in these areas and what the expectation is for these players to be at. The second component of the pilot is a video analysis, and this will be reviewing video of games, of full ice games and half ice games, and validating are the stats and the information that has been used for the purpose of moving forward with half ice hockey still in place and correct. So that'll be shot attempts, pass attempts, shots on goals, puck touches by players, passes received, and time on ice. I'm going to stop there. Is there any questions on the high level of what the pilot is? We'll get into further details of expectations here, but high level of what the pilot is.
Phil, it's Ian. I just, I think it's important, as you said, you had to go through this process with Hockey Canada for approval, and what they were looking for was this data, right? Evidence-based, so we can make decisions going forward. And so that's why this analysis is crucial, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that was the reason that they wanted it. They weren't just going to hand over and say, hey, you can go back to full ice and that's good by us. They have a separate pilot going on in BC, which is a little bit more of the option, but it's all on customer service data and that. And so it's only in one small jurisdiction of BC where they're doing that and they're assessing customer reviews, throughout the season and other stats along with it. So they can come back at the end of the year and say, what is our best direction to move forward with regards to half ice at U9 hockey versus, full ice at U9 hockey, where we have a large push from some associations and from groups that we need to go to full ice in order to compete. And
Perfect.
if the data comes back the opposite, that half ice is better, then we have data to sell the half ice and the direction that we're moving in.
Perfect. Thanks, Phil.
I have
a quick
I think,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Mike from West London. So we're going to be tracking all this, or somebody's going to be tracking this for people who are at half ice and people who are at full ice. Are we taking into account their off ice development? Kids that go and get 2 or 3 extra ice times a week outside with a TPH or a snipe, they're going to progress quicker. Are we going to track that so that you get a proper, accurate view of this?
That's a great point. We were tracking what's within our realm. I mean, if that's something that a team can track, that they know that they have players, specific players that are moving outside and their growth has skewed or gone greater, specific to that over the course of this year, then I think it's relevant to put that in the comments and notes. Hey, Bill McKee has been doing private training 3 times per week. He's progressed from being a 2 in skating to a 10 in skating. A portion of that may be attributed to his outside work in programming. So when you work with the evaluator, that's valuable information to provide forward. We don't have a plan, but we will consider a survey process that could track that information of what individuals are doing outside of the actual programming. So thank you for noting that. Appreciate it. JT, I think it's Justin or.
Oh, it's Jack. Jack from the GLHA. I just had a question. This is year 7, I believe, for half ice hockey now, and I just find it hard to believe that Hockey Canada, like, it has nobody had any stats or data or surveys or anything pointing in any direction in the last 7 years of this half ice hockey already.
The stats and data from Hockey Canada all leads to half ice hockey is better. We as the OHF, we're pushed really hard by associations, a collective group, and in the direction that we needed to move forward with going to full ice, because it's the only way we can compete against non-sanctioned hockey. The data points all read to half ice hockey engages the player more, keeps the player with more touches, more opportunities, so more touches, more shots, more passes. Goaltenders are getting more shots than they are in full ice hockey. More touches, more dekes, so more requirements of players to deke. 40 to 19 in a normal game. Between half ice and full ice, more time on the ice. So in a half ice game, the average time sitting on the bench, the average time of a 50-minute ice time that's dedicated to gameplay versus dedicated to stoppages in play is the difference of 29 minutes versus minute 27 is in the gameplay time frame assessed to in half ice hockey. So there are a number of different stats that we can provide and share out, but they're all leading to half ice. Our group is really driving, saying we need to have full ice. It's the only way to go. And so part of it is validating and seeing one way or the other, which is truly there. And if the data shows that half ice is better in the end, then we have some selling features to provide back and some, ways to combat and compete against individuals who think that the only way to do hockey is the full ice structure and way. And we're open to whatever the answers are that come back here. We're not driving one way or the other. We've been sitting here as a position to be open to it. So. I got one more from Justina. Or is that the one I just answered? If not, Elizabeth.
Okay, I'll go. So with the pilot project, I know that you said in the email there was 14 teams that have already involved. Are we still able to add a team? Like if Brampton wanted to add a team to the pilot program in the Division 1, or is there still opportunity to add?
Well, I'll go to the teams that we have, and we have asked if there and I don't know if I haven't been in my emails. I had asked if there was any programs that had 2 in the tier 1. The key is these players do have to be residential to the area in that focus, and so it's really up to the member within that league to determine if that team would be a tier 1 or not a tier 1. We're right now at 14.
Okay, so right now Brampton, we have for the pilot program already listed then, correct? Based on the list you're showing me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So, I mean, I'll work back with Ian on that if that comes back. So our U9 pilot teams that are included are Flamborough, Guelph, Woolwich, Center Wellington, Burlington, and that will be the Burlington Eagles, correct? Am I Burlington's right? Or Burlington Reps.
Yep.
Yep. And then Oakville, yes. Brampton, Milton, Halton Hills, Hespeler, Erin Hillsborough, Orangeville, Caledon, and Lancaster. That would be running with the full ice for the full year. So they are the formable pilot group. Our our group that is our our check and balance is the Alliance group, which is Sarnia, London Bandits, North London, West London, Oakridge, Stratford, Brantford, Hamilton, Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, Woodstock, the Burlington Bulldogs, and Burlington Raiders. They will run half ice for the full first half of the year. They will do the transition after Christmas to full ice, but they will be part of the assessment process throughout this process as well. I'm going to continue forward here in the essence of time, then we'll get to some more questions at the end as far as expectations. So I only have kind of 4 roles of expectations. What is the OHF role and commitments in this? Our job is the overall implementation, delivery of the pilot, and the reporting back to Hockey Canada on the pilot requests that we have put forward. We will organize the evaluators that will come in and conduct the individual evaluations as noted in the first component in September, December, and March. Those are at our cost. We're covering off the cost of those individuals to be coming in to those sessions. Our job is to collect and compile the data from the individual player evaluations and be able to provide details out. And then we will coordinate the review of video and the collection of data from the video platform that are in place. So I know a number of the facilities would use LiveBarn. We will then gain access to those videos through partnership, and then we will conduct the evaluation of those videos with individuals who will review the video, assess the different stats they're tracking within those individual areas, and ultimately compile that data and report it to Hockey Canada. We will provide access to the Hockey Canada app to all head coaches to access practice plans. So we are providing you your practice plans for the first 14 weeks of the season, so that they're the same in full ice programming as they are in half ice programming. So that will be provided to you, and those will be provided over the course of the starting for the 3rd week of September here. we'll provide evaluation sheets to the coaches for tracking of shots, and you'll see later on the responsibility for that, but we'll have a standardized form that will be utilized, by parents and groups to track shots. This will be a test back to what we're dealing with regards to the video analysis. So it's a kind of a redundant process to get more data into the system. The member role, this is the role of the Alliance and the OMHA, is to work, with their associations to confirm the schedules from all of the participating associations and specific teams, to work with associations to confirm the facilities being used, and if there is a video capture of the games within those facilities for the games, not worrying about the practices. The need to grant access to data in the Game Sheet Inc. for scores and player stats. One of the assessments we'll work through in this is making sure that if we're identifying, single players that are dominating at certain levels, then we can assess the data of those teams and evaluate it based on that basis. So not needing to export that data, just need to be able to work with the associate members on that to help identify individuals to conduct the evaluations. We have a number of individuals, but geography-wise, we may not have people in the exact same place. And then alliances to verify that gameplay is 2 half-ice games at the same time, that we're not operating one half-ice game and leaving, trying to use all players in one half-ice game. We have 2 half-ice games. And then there will be to conduct a survey of parents and players on experience. It may be similar to one that's being done in BC. Hockey Canada will be providing and working with us to provide that, but it'll be done by the members and sent out by the members in that partnership. And then the scheduling of games, working with your schedulers to schedule games in facilities that does have live barn or video as much as possible. So that's where the members will come in. The role of the associations is, to ensure that we're running an average of 3 ice times per week, if that's what, is viable, that we're not, running with some teams running 5 and 6 ice times per week and some running with, 1 to 2. We're looking at this tier level that, 3 ice times per week is appropriate here as moving forward, but garnering a 2-to-1 practice to ratio. We know some weeks you might have 4, another week you might have 2. We know that, we're looking for the average to be 3 ice times per week as we move forward. To ensure that coaches are delivering the provided practice plans, we understand that, sometimes coaches have their own plan of, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And especially we're going to see, coaches that are on the pilot side, which are running full ice, having this desire to run, systems, power play, penalty kill, etc. The practice plans are built around skill and identifying, growth in skill so that we can validate what is in place for, full ice versus half ice games and the impact of those. To provide access to the live barn or other video feed for all games of the U9 pilot programs, so that we can, do that. We would like, to know if your games are in facilities that will be on live barn. I don't need the access as of Monday. I need to know where your games generally are at, and if you have live barn or if you have YouTube or if you have another video source. And if not, we have a potential video source that we can then provide to those associations that aren't in facilities that have that. That is a portable system that would transfer from rink to rinks with those teams. But ideally, live barn would help us out if you have facilities that are utilizing that. To provide to us your calendar of events for the U9 team by Monday, September 9th. We don't need necessarily the entire year, but access those calendar events. If it's done all through Sports Heads, access through that, and we can identify the person there. But really need to have it so the evaluators can set up the sessions here in the last 2 weeks of September. So really knowing what those schedules are really for September and October, so we can start down that road, but also get the game feeds set up and in place. Commitment to set aside 1 practice in September, December, and March for evaluator to conduct the individual player evaluation session. Ideally, an hour and 20 minutes is probably better for this session so that the evaluator can run through a number of drills and with the coaches and get a good assessment of all the players. If that's not possible, we can do it off a 50-minute practice, but ideally an hour and 20-minute session there, if that's possible. To provide budgets for each of the teams involved in the pilot. One of the assessments Hockey Canada would like to pull out, and they're doing in BC as well, is, is there a difference in price, a fundamental difference in price when we talk about two different programs? And then to provide the OHF with coaches' contact information so we can get them on the network app and for facilitating the evaluation session. So a phone and email. And the key there is that we want to make sure that, when the evaluator is coming in, they have the contact information so that they're not sitting blind walking into a rink and not knowing who they're dealing with or connecting with. The coach's role and commitment is to communicate with the association any changes in the schedule of the program. So if things are changing in their structure or schedule, so that can be informed back up to the collective group working on the evaluations. Build into the schedule the individual evaluation segment that coach will run and evaluator will attend. And in that practice, players need to be in game sweaters for number identification, obviously, on the score sheet or the form there I showed you at the beginning. Working with your players to make sure that sweaters are outside of pants as much as possible. In addition to this, that I've noted is, especially in the full ice games, if they're playing on live burn, to make sure that there is a fundamental difference in the jerseys on live burn. That way we can utilize live burn's stats tracking to track some of the data that we were going to capture by an individual sitting and watching it. Utilize the Hockey Canada Network app for accessing the practice plans. The app will be provided by the OHF. There's no cost to it, or by your member if your member's already provided to you, but also being in the situation where the practice plans are going to be handed to you there as a coach. Utilize those practice plans and grab it. There'll be video of every drill, as well as a layout of a PDF of that practice for each of the coaches. We will run a tutorial as well for those coaches as the OHF on how to utilize that network app once we get them set up. Identify an individual parent or coach to fill out the shots on net and tracking of shot location, goals, and game scores. So that's our double check back, and then those can be submitted into the OHF. We will get you a form, and that will be in place for those parents to utilize in the game. It could be a coach if you want. It's sometimes easier if it's a parent in the stands that's what they're doing. They're just doing that evaluation and watching it. And then utilize the evaluation tool to conduct an evaluation of players in September, December, and March on gameplay. As I mentioned, there was two components to individual skills. We will have a skills instructor out. The gameplay portion is more subjective. We will kind of give an assessment video of what a 1 out of 10 is, but seeing that difference and having coaches conduct that evaluation of the gameplay notes will be valuable, another addition of feedback to us. Those are the roles. Any questions? I'm sure there's tons.
Hey Phil, it's Ian. I'll just jump in before
Sure.
some questions from the associations. Just not the responsibility of the associations, but we will be putting out a communication, right, about the pilot, public communication, so people understand what you've gone over today, what the pilot is, its purpose, why the two leagues have been identified for the pilot, and what's going forward. So I think that's important because obviously there will be some news will travel that there's a group playing 5-on-5 full ice. So that's going to be out there. The other thing I wanted to note is I know there's hope that this will impact a change for next year. And again, as you've noted, the data will direct an informed decision one way or the other. We do know that non-sanctioned hockey will, begin registration, that sort of thing in the spring, probably when this pilot's still going on. So can you speak a little bit about how the timing might work here? And I know there's no definites, but I think that's going to come up at some point.
Yeah, our goal is to develop the information off the interim report, which will be, after the second
Perfect.
assessment.
Right.
The third assessment will be a further trigger because we know the kids are going to full ice in that situation. That we're playing half ice in the first
From
half.
the control group. Right.
From the control group. And so from that, we'll be looking at some other data points there that we want to evaluate in that time frame. And then, we'll continue to work with these groups to assess that. But the skill portion and the video analysis portion, we'll be closing that up after December and aiming to have we're going to have a report to Hockey Canada in January. And this would lead back to our February timeframe for making changes that we have.
Terrific. That's a great answer. And I think that's important. Everyone understands that because, we're looking at decision points during the season, as you noted, right? Thanks.
Yep. So I have Jo there.
Yep. My question is, what happens when these two groups meet for tournament play?
In the first half of the season,
Yes.
it would run half ice.
Okay, so the
Second half
pilot
of the
teams that are
season.
playing full ice will play half ice in tournaments?
Yes.
Okay. That's all for me. Thanks.
Next person who's got number 2 up there, Ryan, I think it is.
Yeah. Thanks. You mentioned that the average of 3, so the two practices to 1 game. What about development? So some of us associations in that have development in people that we have as part of our offering and stuff like that throughout the entire association. It includes from U7 to U9 from last year. So what way is that viewed? The reason I ask is I know that when there's, the summer break or Christmas break or March break, it's completely blackout, no games, no organized practice, but development's allowed. So I'm just curious as to how that's going to be viewed.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a development opportunity over the Christmas timeframe or the winter holiday or the March break and that, and yeah.
But I'm talking about in season, because there's associations that offer the opportunity, they bring in people and have it as part of the program offering, as sort of the membership is dictated over the number of years and things like that. And I'm just wondering if that is still viewed as
one of the 2 ice times per week or one of the 2 practices per week. Like they have an outside skills trainer, no problem.
Yeah.
Let's just note that as an item, because the skills trainer is doing the practice plans are going to be really derived around similar to what a skills trainer is going to do. So you're going to find that your practices, and I'll be blunt here, the practices are not about team strategy. There's no power play, penalty kill. There's some minimum team tactics in it. The practices are around individual skill development and growth of what we want U9 players to have as skills as they move forward. And it will be, this is what a lot of the skills instructors do when they come on the ice and they run practices. So it's not much different than that. And the expectation is that that's what we're going to have across the board here.
Okay. One last thing, not so much a question, but a point. The point that you mentioned September 9th, as far as the schedule goes, just sort of as far as getting you guys, because I understand obviously you got to come evaluate in September. Majority of us in Tri-County, if not all, or whatever, we only start tryouts on Monday. So some of us, I know that in Flamborough we've got sort of an idea of what the schedule is going to kind of look like, but we won't even have these teams formed until the end of next week. So just more of a point, the September 9th, I don't think is necessarily realistic, is all I'm just saying.
No, but if that's the answer, coming back September 9th, hey, our tryouts are next week. Our schedule will be to you kind of by
by the
you
end
know,
of next week type of thing.
by the end of the following week, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
it's like,
Yeah,
as
I
soon
just
as we
wanted to
have
clarify on that. Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, like, we're looking at, what we're looking to do is try to move as quickly as possible. We all recognize in this that we got pushed behind the 8 ball because we got this back in, I'm going to say, second, third week of August, the go ahead on this, versus in May. And so we were kind of sitting in, okay, hurry up offense. Can we find a league that's going to actually be willing to, run the full ice and do it and have a pilot group? We had some feelers out to these two groups, but it had to be residentially compliant. That was a key core. So, the GTHL would have said, yeah, we're good for it. We want to run full ice, but it wasn't going to be residentially compliant. So it didn't meet the standards of what we had to have in place. There wasn't recruiting kids for the purpose, all the best kids, and skewing what we were doing as an evaluation standpoint.
Okay. Thank you.
Ted?
Hi, Phil. Ted Annis from Golf Minor Hockey. We run 3 tiered teams at U9. So I guess a 2-part question for you. Is it all 3 teams or all of different associations teams in an age group that are participating is part 1. And part 2, in terms of the pilot program, is it sort of an all or nothing consideration based on the age of U9, or is there consideration for skill level or tiering where it may be appropriate for top tier teams to go to full ice, but maybe not as appropriate for lower tiers, for example?
All that might come into the determination and evaluation in the end. So the pilot here that we're running is specific to, because of time frame and looking at it, specific to your top tier team. So it'd be your tier 1 team that plays in the tier 1 loop. So we're just that's the only group that's playing full ice. Your other groups are playing half ice, and that'll be the structure of what this is. So there's a 14 team or whatever the loop is that the OMHA's approved as their tier 1 group. There will be playing the full ice. Outside of that, we will deal with the group of the rest from an evaluation standpoint. They're not part of the pilot.
Okay, thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, thanks. Just one last question. In London, roughly, we're losing around 60 U9 players a year to outlawed leagues. So we have, in the GLHA, we have 4 associations. So I just want to be able to go back and tell them when they keep asking me time and time again about full ice. So I know that we're doing, everybody will be grading and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, does what people want, is that going to come into play at all? Or are we going to strictly go by what the data is showing?
Both will factor in. That's why there is the customer survey that's going in. And the BC study is based more on, what people want versus what the data is specifically showing. So their study is a little bit more just on customer choice in a small area. But in their requirement, they have to run both half ice and full ice, and people have to have the option to both. And so a little different structure, and that evaluation will come into the overall decision of where are we going with the programming here.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other questions. There was a couple notes I did make here. I was going through it, some adjustments for clarification. We will get this deck out to the 2 members to get out to you as well in confidence here tomorrow, but we will be also launching out as Ian indicated, a public release on this information. I see Daryl. Go ahead.
So in terms of rosters, if you have 2 kids that are pre-approved to be on your roster from the age below, are they allowed to stay on your pre-approved roster?
So we did recognize it, but we do, and I didn't identify this. We do need to note those individuals. So if a player had gone through the proper process to play up,
and they played up the year before as well.
Yeah.
So it's not
there's
just
a process.
Yeah.
there's a process
Okay.
for players that have played up to play up,
Okay.
and that has to be approved by your member. If they've gone through that process, then they're fine to participate in the situation.
Amazing. Okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Ryan, I think it is.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, he just sort of triggered one that I was meaning to ask from the get-go is, what about AP? So like the U9 team that's in the pilot, we've got a U9 tier 2 team that's playing obviously half ice. What is their AP pro? Can they AP from the tier 2 team if they need to, if like, you know, they're missing a goalie, for example, or if they have injured players or things like that?
Absolutely, with goaltenders, I think that we would members would be more in line to answer this question overall. We, as an example, we don't allow APing of players, if I'm correct, and Ian and Tyler can come in here during the first half, or sort of during the second half of the season, from half ice programming up to the full ice programming.
Right.
Correct. So
that's correct.
I think we would aim in the same direction here. With this, if it's a situation of safety, we would leave it to the member, to work with the association to address those concerns.
Okay, perfect.
So like if a team was down too many players to participate in play, I have absolute faith in Ian and Tyler to make the right decision to say, yeah, we're okay with the APs in that situation for safety or not.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah. That's perfect.
That Daryl again? Daryl? Hand still up, or is that?
No, for some reason it's just still up. I'll see if I can take it down.
Problem.
Sorry.
Okay. Jason?
Just a quick follow-up on the AP thing. For the U9 MD players that are participating in the pilot and playing full ice from the beginning of the year, if they're AP'd to a U10 team, are they allowed to play as an AP in those games at U10 and full ice in the first half of the season?
I would suggest no on this.
Okay.
We would keep the same rule that's across the board for these players, because then it would skew the evaluation of those players to a certain degree. So, we're providing the advantage of playing full ice here as a testing mechanism. And under that structure, in the first half, they wouldn't have the ability to AP. So we're not going to extend that outside of the pilot. We weren't approved for that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Shauna?
Hi, Shauna from Oakville Rangers. So in our scenario, Oakville has 2 teams. So our tier 1 and our tier 2 in pod 1. And I believe Burlington does as well. Does the tier 2 teams get to stay in that pod?
I'm going to have to defer to Ian on that. Yeah, and Ian, I'll leave it to you with which teams are going to be involved here. So
sure. Yeah, Phil, we've provided the one team for each of the associations. So I know I flipped you an email today, so I think we should just walk through that before making any final decisions. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Ian.
You bet.
Hearing that, thank you very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. If you do have any questions after the call here, get them to Ian, get them to Tyler. They'll feed them in through us. They're active with us on a daily basis here as we're working through these scenarios. So again, really appreciate everyone's time in a busy time for all your associations. So look forward to working with all of you in collecting some good data and providing back